All right, so welcome back. A couple things before we start. First and foremost, you will notice that the background is slightly different. Um, and this is because my internet is not working at my apartment. So I had to go visit my family on the other side of the state to use internet because I can't get it. So that's a little thing that I'm working through. So I'm trying to make sure that I can get the content out. So if it does take a little bit this week, it's because I'm working with slow internet because my apartment doesn't have it anymore. Uh, they're working on it apparently. I don't know. Uh, but there's that first and foremost. And today we're going to be going into African resistance to imperialism. We're going to talk about some of the good, like some of the countries that were successful. We're going to also like touch on like countries that weren't as successful. Some of the big so what's like. Why do we care? Like why should we bother with this? Well, it's because we already saw that literally all of Africa was taken over for the most part, with the exception of two, and we'll talk on those today. So first and foremost, African resistance it is strong. They don't want to be under European rule. I mean, it's no one really wants to be under someone else's rule, especially that we just got through with nationalism, talking about how the idea that you want like the people that are from an area want to govern that area because they're similar in terms of religion, in terms of their language, their culture, their just identity as a whole. Um, and then here's some notable examples, right? So Algeria, which is if you look on there, um, Algeria, it were pretty successful. I mean, 50 years of um, being able to resist the rule of France, but half century after half century, they ended up succumbing to French rule. And like I said, this here is Algeria, and it is modern day Algeria still. So if you're wondering, like, is that still Algeria? Yeah, it is. So there's some rebellions, to name a few. So, and this one is um, Africans in German East Africa. So I know that's kind of like a weird way of saying it, but it's German owned East Africa, right? So there's a lot of like Germans are down there, and I guess at this point they're technically like Prussians because it's not really Germany yet. And then you have the French that own land, you have the British, you have the Dutch, you have, and again in my last video we talked about the Belgians, right? So they're really coming down. They're doing their thing. They're trying to subdivide this entire continent into something that's beneficial for them, right? So you have this. I'm pretty sure I'm saying this right, but I'm not Paul. So the Maji Rebellion. I keep wanting to say revolution, but it's not. It's not revolution. We're done with those for right meow. We're done with those. Okay, so you have 20 ethnic groups that banding together, trying to fight back, and unfortunately, Germans have significantly better technology. And with significantly better technology, you have a huge advantage. So think of it as if we are playing on a soccer pitch, right? And instead of it being level, it's like this: one goal here, one goal here. And the Germans are going this way, so they have uphill, and Africans are here, right? So this is a disadvantage because you're trying to kick a ball uphill. It's always naturally going to want to come back down this way, right? So they're just fighting an uphill battle and they can't win. And because of 75,000 that died in battle from machine guns and whatnot, and twice as many ended up dying from famine that resulted from that. So if you add up those 225,000 people, and again, not great with math, like pretty good with it, not great because I haven't done it in a long time, but you add that up, that's the size, the population of Spokane. So the second largest city in the state. That's the equivalent of population within 2 years. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. Okay, so if we're gonna get into Ethiopia. Ethiopia is the only country that was successful internally rebelling everyone. no one was successful, and a lot of it is thanks to Emperor Menelik II. Okay, 1889. Funny enough, that is the exact same year that Washington became a state. I'm like 99% sure on that. Well, you know what? I gotta double check because if I say that and I'm wrong, I'm like 99%. I'm 100% certain. I was right. I'm good. I'm good. I know my history. I know my facts, especially about my state. The best state. Are we? Am I right? Of course. All right. So, dude's wicked smart. He's wicked smart. Okay. He's taking advantage of European infighting, and I say that I don't mean like he's getting them in a boxing ring and he's like, no, no, no. Like, what I mean by that is he understands that the Europeans don't really like each other all that much. He understands that the French don't really get along very well with the British, don't get really along that well with the Spanish, don't really get along that well. Like, you see a trend here. And so he's smart. So he's trying to, like, basically pit them a little bit against each other so they kind of duke it out and maybe leave them to the side. And that's really smart, right? So using their weaknesses against them, right? Allowing them to fight each other because if they all three combine and fight Ethiopia, Ethiopia doesn't stand a chance. But if he can have them deal with each other, more time, right? And then he's doing his thing, right? So what he's doing is he's like, okay, we're going to get a large arsenal of modern weapons. Arsenal, we're not talking about the soccer club in North London. Not talking about that arsenal. Um, we're talking about a huge amount of ammunition and guns in order to and modernization of that, not like old school tech. Like we're talking like state of the art tech, right? We need that new stuff to battle in order to succeed. So he's doing that, and so he's modernizing Ethiopia, right? He's getting he's purchasing weapons from Russia, and why is Russia on board with this? Well, Russia doesn't they don't get along with the British, the French. Like they don't care. They're making money off this, right? They're selling weapons to Ethiopia. Ethiopia's paying. They're sending them a bunch of stuff back. All right, this is beneficial to Russia too. The Tsar of Russia, he's on board with this. Why not? They end up getting about 70,000 modern rifles and enough ammunition to make them viable. That's a pretty impressive army. Wow, don't want to be son. That's pretty impressive, even at this point, right? Is it as impressive as maybe like what the British have? Probably not, but it's significant because he's able to amass enough where he takes this field, right? And instead of him going like up, he's pushed it down a little bit, made it easier for Ethiopians to combat imperialism. Because if he doesn't do this, if he doesn't get these weapons, if he doesn't modernize, it stays like this. But he's pushed it down to make it a more level playing field. Okay, real wicked smart. Okay, so Italian versus Ethiopian. Right, I should put an end on the end of that. So dude signs a treaty, right? My boy, the Emperor of Ethiopia, he signs a treaty. He gives a small amount of land to Italy, hoping to like maybe like get them to not bother them as much. But what you got to understand is Italy's going, well, you wrote this, so let's translate it into Italian. And they're going, according to the street, you gave us a lot more power. And now it's going, bruh, no, 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 you misread. No, like, no, the translation states this. So they're arguing that Ethiopia's under their command. And he's going, dude, you tripping. Y'all be tripping. Okay. Little interesting fact that piece of land is today called Eritrea. And I want you to pause the video and take a look at a map quick. So I'll wait for a second so you can do that. Okay, so you see where that's at. Historically, prior up to this point, not really the conflict. Like there's conflict between those areas, but like not really to the extent as there is now. So just last year they signed a treaty, basically like trying to like smooth relations over. But because of this move and the split that happened, Eritrea and Ethiopia butt heads a lot, and it's all stems from this, which is pretty interesting. Um, yeah, so Italians they advance into Ethiopia. They're trying to basically um, they're trying to control it, right? They're trying to do imperialism. They're trying to get this piece of land under their command, under their control, so that they can exploit the resources, right? We're talking about the three Gs again. Uh, we're not talking about Pac. We're not talking about Biggie. We ain't talking about Snoop, right? The three Gs, as in gold, glory, and God, right? And gold is the big one. Okay, they have the siege. They're doing their thing. Menelik is vowing, and I'm gonna quote it because yo, it is a dope quote. All right, God, in His bounty, has struck down my enemies and enlarged my empire and preserved me to this day. I have reigned by the grace of God, as we must all die sometime. I will not be afflicted if I die. Enemies have come who would ruin our country and change our religion. They have passed beyond the sea which God gave us as our frontier. These enemies have advanced, burrowing into the country like moles. With God's help, I will get rid of them. Yo, my dude straight up is saying like these they burn our country. I'm gonna annihilate them because I'm in the run, right? God's gonna help me annihilate them. If your leader is that confident and spewing that type of like those like bars, right? If he's spewing that, if he's coming at you with that, and he's smacking down, he's basically throwing down the gauntlet. You're gonna fight for that dude. You're gonna fight for that leader, okay? And they do. And after 45 days, he's like, y'all can retreat. Because not only did you lose when everyone, literally every other country in Africa is being taken over, every other, these Italians lose. So they're embarrassed. They're like when the Patriots lost the Super Bowl to the Giants after they were 18-0, and they were like, we're going to stomp the Giants. And then they lost, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's like that. Okay. They shame. So they're calling in reinforcements, right? They phone it back home. They're like, yeah. We took an L. I know. How do we take an L? I guess the Russians maybe gave them stuff. I don't know. We need reinforcements. So they send reinforcements. Italians come back down. They're like, all right, let's do this. Let's do this. We got reinforcements. And this would be a bad story. It'd be a bad story if I told you that uh, Emperor Menelik, man, he couldn't stand it. But my boy doesn't take an L. No, he gets another win. He fights him and he's successful. Okay, this is the battle that just ends it. Ethiopia doesn't get conquered. Ethiopia got the dub. Okay, this is a big moment. This is the only country in Africa that was able to successfully avoid European imperialism. And you're going to say, but what about this? What about the other independent state in Africa? Because y'all are wicked smart and you know there's two. Well, it's Liberia. Okay. Let's take a quick look. If you look at this map, you can see Liberia right here on the west coast of Africa, right next to Sierra Leone, which there's a lot of stuff that happens there recently. That's actually, I think, where Blood Diamond takes place. If you've seen the movie Blood Diamond, and it's in between there and the Cote d'Ivory, where the Ivory Coast, and the Gold Coast, which is known as Ghana now, where that's where my grandparents lived for like 10 plus years. Um, but you can kind of see if you look at this, like who owns what, right? Like who owns it? Well, it's like, well, the UK. Here's some the UK. Here's some of the French, and here's independent technically. But then you have Portugal over here, and then you got Belgium right here in the Congo, right? So there's a lot. There's a lot of European like dominance over this. Okay, so between this, America developed the colony, right? And what's this colony? Well, the colony is basically for independent slaves, right? It's a colony that's set up for freed slaves, right? And you look at this, you go, wait, Mr. Higgs, wasn't slavery still a thing in the U.S. at this point? Yeah, it still was, but there were freed slaves, right? Just because slavery is still enacted in the U.S. doesn't mean there was no free slaves. There were still free slaves. So this was a colony that was developed for that, right? And at this point, they decide, we're going to declare ourselves an independent nation. Though when they do this, they're think of it this way: they're still kind of under American control in a way. Like they're not like free of American control. They still need the support because they don't want other influences enacting upon them. Because like if they're completely free, they might get pinched between maybe the UK or maybe France might come in and play a role in it. Okay, so Liberia, let's put these up here so you can see them. Right, so it's governed by a small group of African American colonists. Okay, so when we're talking like slaves that came from the U.S. back. They're out. They're African American, right? They're coming back, and their offspring are Americo Liberians. Basically, like they're American because like the slaves that came over. Now they're free slaves from America. They came back over, so that's what they're denominated as. Denominated? I don't know if that's the right word, but like I hope it makes sense. Um, and they believe that they're superior based off of one of the three G's. Again, like not feel like I make that joke all the time. I don't know if it's funny. I think it's funny, but it's not Pac, right? It's not Pac. It's not Biggie. It's one of the G's, as in God. They believe that they are superior because they are Christian, because they originally had their own religion in Africa, forced to go to America where they're slaves, and they're generations of slaves, and they eventually pick up the the predominant religion of the South, which is Christianity, and now they're back, and now they believe they're superior because they're Christian. Interesting, ironic, right? So they ruled 95% of the Liberian population, right? So they are the minority population, about 5% or less, ruling over all of Liberia. Okay, so again, kind of interesting turn of events, so to speak, but that's what happens. So I'm just going to put these all up that way you can kind of see it. So here we go. So they kept their English speaking skills, Americanized way of life. Think of it like what they've come accustomed to in America. Even if they were a slave and they were freed, or if they lived in the North and ended up going back, like think of it as their religion, their culture, their identity, right? Because at this point, even though their ancestors are from here and they've moved over here, there's a shift, right? They have a different way of life. They have a different language. They have a different religion. So like it's a shift. So they come back and they keep those skills. They're they're dominated by key like controlling key areas or access and all that stuff. And what I mean by that is how are they staying in control of 95%? Like Mr. Higgs, yeah. Wouldn't they, if they're only one out of every 20 people, wouldn't the other 19 just fight back against them? Well, yeah, that would make sense. But they control things like access to the ocean, right? If we go back, right? If they can control access to the ocean, that's trade. Trade's important. You gotta make that real cash money, right? You gotta make that. You gotta make those stacks. So they're controlling that. They have modern technical skills, like certain technologies that have advanced. They're not only are they knowledgeable about it, but they're able to do it. So there's another thing that they have literacy, and they have higher levels of education. And again, you might be asking, but if they're freed slaves, like how do they have this? Well, have y'all ever been around someone that speaks another language, right? And you don't speak a lick of it. Like French, I don't speak a lick of French, but I've been around it. Some like my wife kind of speaks it, and I hear y'all speaking it every so often. You can kind of pick up on words, right? You can kind of hear it. You hear it enough, and you can kind of like weave your way through it. And if you do that enough, if you hear it enough, you can kind of pick up more literacy as well as more education just by being exposed to it. Okay. Again, you come into my classroom. Well, I had one when we were doing this face to face and not this weird virtual stuff, right? When you came into my classroom, even if you didn't listen to a thing I'd be saying, and you just sitting there like, this is weird, right? If you that's what you're thinking, eventually over time, if I keep lecturing and we keep talking, we were like working with stuff, like eventually things are gonna stick, right? Eventually you're gonna understand like, oh, even if like you don't really want to, you hear me like rattling, like, yeah, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. Like eventually, like things like that will just kind of like plug in your brain, will stay there forever. You'll never forget that, right? And that's kind of what I'm talking about when I say like maybe they didn't are formally educated, or maybe but they still have literacy based off that. And then maybe arguably the most important one is they have a relationship with the American government. And the American government is not like in this time, it's not as strong as it is during World War One and World War Two, in the whole 20th century, right? America is yoked in the 20th century. They got it all. 19th century, not as much, right? Still coming into their own. They're still trying to figure out what's going on. But at this point, right, they have that relationship with a larger and industrialized country, and that's important. So these are the effects of European imperialism on Africa. There's a lot of them, and like we could make this list go all day. Like there's tons of effects, but one of them is new borders in Africa. So this is hugely important, and it doesn't sound like it would be important, but if you if you are arbitrarily drawing borders, and what I mean by that, like if you don't know anything about the people that live there, about their culture, about their religion, their identity, and you're just drawing lines because like whatever, like we needed to divvy it up somehow because the French are over here saying that they have this and the Spanish are over there, and we just want to get us all like you just drawing lines like that, you're splitting apart cultures that have been together for centuries, and you're forcing together cultures that maybe don't like each other for centuries for one reason or another, and that creates conflict. And conflict, if y'all don't understand, can lead to fights. It could lead to wars. It could lead to genocides. And we've talked about genocide, right? We've already gone into that, and that's exactly what happens, right? All over Africa. All over Africa. The reason why I had you memorize where Rwanda was at is because of the Rwandan genocide that took place less than 30 years ago. Okay. You have like that's huge, and you'll see that play out time and time and time and time again. Okay. Europeans exploit Africans and the land. Yeah, one of the three G's, right? Gold. They may be saying, oh, we're doing it for God, or oh, we're doing it for glory, but at the end of the day, everyone likes a fat bank account, right? If I said you could have $100 or 1,000, you're gonna probably say 1,000, right? The same thing. They're looking at it, going, we see an opportunity to push our nation beyond, right? We're looking at this opportunity, so they're going to exploit the people and the land and everything that has everything to do with it, so that they can get more for their home country. And that has a lot to do with the scramble for those colonies, right? The absolute like hungry, hungry hippo style, that right, where they're just like the Africa, or those little pebble, like those little circles or marbles or whatever, and they're just like smashing the hippos, like, oh my god, get as much as you can, as quick as you can. That's what they're doing. Okay, like they're just like go, 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 go. They're going mad. They're going crazy with this. Um, and obviously, as I talked about today, like they're trying to resist it up and down Africa, all over, east to west. They don't want it. It's not like they were like, yes, come here, come here. The British, we love this stuff. No, no, no one wants to be conquered by someone who they don't think is anything like them, right? No one wants that. I would argue. I mean, maybe someone does. I can't make these grandiose, overarching claims that there's like no one in the world, but like for the vast majority, people don't like that. And then you're Western educated. And why Western educated? We were talking like European educated. We're talking like North American educated, in terms of like more advanced technology, industrial revolution, kind of things like that. Those elite emerge because they have that education and that advantage again. They're basically like starting uphill already. And then obviously the ramifications of all of that is you have African leaders that are forging nationalist movements. Hey, we are inherently different than the people that are controlling us. Because we're different, we want to say in how it's run. That's no different than what Americans did in the 1700s, right? They're like, yo, British, you tripping. No one likes tea. We're gonna dump that tea in the harbor because coffee's where it's at, right? Not, I don't think they said that, right? But it's the same concept. Like we don't think, and there's a lot more to do. Like there's a lot more reasons why the Americans like decided to flip the bird to the British, but one of the reasons is like you aren't the same as us. We want to be inherently different. We are inherently different. We want a say in how it's run. Okay, no taxation without representation. Y'all can't do what you do because we ain't represented. We want to be represented. So with that, you have some African resistance, some of the countries that are successful, some of the ones that aren't so successful, and some ramifications, effects, right, of it. If you do have any questions, let me know. And again, I do apologize for the lack of technology that is on my part. I'm so sorry. I literally did everything I could to get the internet to work. I tried, but I had to come over here. So I'm doing my best. Let me know if you have any questions. And with that, Mr. Higgs.